Spent most of my career in corporate retail. Started at Target Corporation, was at the North Face doing product, Amazon, and then recently I've kind of ventured into the startup world where I'm an operator. It's kind of a vague term, but it kind of means, whatever problem comes across the desk, that's my job to kind of figure out. So having some fun. Really excited to, kind of chat with all of you tonight. Hopefully we can keep it as conversational as possible. And if you have things, throw them in the chat or whatever. But I echo everybody else's sentiment. Holly, appreciate you inviting me on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we'll get started. I'll do like a little bit of a structured Q&A, but then I'll definitely leave time at the end for anybody else on here who has any last questions that you want to get answered. So, my first question for you guys is when you were early in your career, how did you first start building professional relationships and what did you find worked best for you? And I guess we can just kind of all answer this one. We'll go down the line. We can start with you, Mike.
Yeah, so early in my career, I was working part-time at a small bank while I was going to USC. And I think back then I was not even conscious of how do I build my career. It was just a part-time job. But I think subconsciously I was doing the work anyway, as I let people know, my colleagues know, even though it was part-time, know that, yeah, this is what I think I want to do as a career. And so I just let people know, my colleagues know this is the job you're doing is possibly what I want to learn to do. And I think that's what happened because starting off as a banker, you're naturally going to do teller work. And then I became new accounts and more in the line of new business type of a track. So I think that's what just letting people know what my goals were or aspirations, and follow up too. That's very important. You could tell your colleagues what you want to do or what you have envisioned, but if you don't follow up with that, it won't happen. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think a lot of times people are willing to help, but if you don't tell them what you're trying to accomplish, it definitely is difficult to get to that point. So I think that's a great point. Richard, if you want to answer this one too, just to reiterate, how did you first start building professional relationships and what did you find worked best for you?
Yeah, so I would say kind of similar to Mike. My networking really wasn't intentional. It was more just getting engaged in things that I was interested in.
Sorry, Richard, I think you might be cutting out a little bit, at least
And
on my end, but
follow through. And
okay, oh, there you go. I think it should be
I'm
good now.
sorry about that.
All good.
And so I was kind of just talking about, really there's niches within every industry and market. So just kind of finding where you fit and what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And then Jacob, if you want to take this one too before we move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think just quickly, like there's two types of ways to like go early, in my opinion. Like when you're young, I think it's you have to either like find a point of entry, like, okay, I want to work at this company and I want to like get around people to find out that like they only hire this job. So then you start like knocking on that door as like a point of entry. But I think there's like type two, which is you can like identify these people, whether they're classmates, whether they're people in this Zoom right now, where like, wow, like this person's gonna like be doing something really interesting. You can even like see that in the news, right? Like these days, like you can literally go on LinkedIn and like you want to go connect with some founder of some company, like you can try, right? So I think it's like two ways. It's like knock on that entry point door once you find that. And there's obviously work it takes to get to that point, but I think USC could help, things like this could help, alumni could help. And then type two is like hey, I really want to be like Mike or Richard or Holly. Like, let me connect with her on LinkedIn and just kind of like be peripheral to what she's up to. And then if there's time comes, like then shoot her a message.
Yeah, for sure. Love that. I'm gonna do this next question directed at Mike. You kind of touched on this a little bit. But once you've made that initial connection, what do you find are effective ways to stay in touch and follow up without this feeling too awkward or forced?
Yeah, that's a good question. With me, because as a banker, it's very relationship driven. So throughout my career, I was always connecting with people. And if someone from USC or even just a junior officer, for example, uh, reached out to me and we did have an opportunity to have a chat or even meet briefly. And if I hadn't heard from that person in a while, I would follow up, just because that's the way I operate as a relationship builder and find out what that person uh, decided to do, even after I had made that outreach to that person. And in fact, this evening or earlier today, I was going through my kind of some emails, and I came across one of my earlier mentees through the program here at USC, probably 11 years ago or 12 years ago. And I thought, I'll drop him a line. So uh, again, that's part of where you create these relationships and you nurture them. And as that relationship grows, you'll have those discussions about what they want to do. How can I approach this? Is there a way that you can facilitate in a meeting with this person at your company or someone within your industry? And I think that's very important to just cultivate these relationships, but stay on top of them throughout your professional career and even after.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike. My next question is, I'll do this one for all of you. Can you share an example of a mentor who had a meaningful impact on you in your career, and what do you think made that relationship successful? And then for this one, we can work backwards. So, Jacob, if you want to kick it off for this one.
Yeah, I think I've had so many mentors and folks who have like I've sought and they've kind of sought me. And I think there's like a great balance between that. Um, a great example is like a person who is not that much older than me. I'm the oldest in my family of like brothers, and I always would like love an older brother, or I'd love like this figure in my life to kind of like steer the ship a little bit. And so I sought out this relationship with a guy who was 2 years older than me in my undergraduate university. And, he essentially like would break any barrier down I wanted him to. Hey, I wanted to work at this company. He's like, great, I'll go talk to these people I know. And it was kind of this like, as an undergraduate, you may not have that confidence to go knock on the doors and to go do these things. And I think like if you seek that person who maybe is like a counter to what you are and what I was at the time, I was a little timid, I was a little shy, I wasn't so sure of myself. And as an undergraduate, you don't have this breadth of experience. You don't have the years of experience where you feel like you can really like dive in and like get into someone's like subject matter world. But like you'd be shocked, like a USC alumni who maybe is like 1, 2, 3 years out, if you go seek them out and say, hey, I'd love your help to get into X company or get into X industry or even a city, like you'd be shocked. Like Mike was saying that earlier about, hey, can I facilitate a relationship here with you? Can I facilitate a conversation? Like there's so many folks that are willing to do that and like have absolutely been doing that for me in my career. So, it's certainly out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think definitely, I always say with USC, the Trojan family is definitely real. I feel like anyone who went to USC or has any sort of connection is definitely always willing to help someone else who went to USC. So it's definitely important to utilize that awesome network that we do have. And then I'll pass the same question to you, Richard. Can you just share an example of a mentor that you had, and um, what do you think made this relationship successful? Or he might still be a little glitched out. Maybe, I guess, Mike, if you want to go ahead first and then he can follow up after.
Yeah. I'll
Okay. I get Mike, if you want to go ahead, at least on my end, he's not coming through anymore. So,
Okay. Well, when I was beginning with my career and even mid-career, I did actively seek out those above me who I felt could help me along the way on a career path and maybe follow what they were doing because I felt that they were doing very interesting work. So they knew my history within the bank. And I think because of that, when we had opportunities to work as a team, I made known to them, these are my aspirations. How can I achieve that? And sometimes I was successful and other times not, but in most cases, we did have those discussions and I was able to get onto that path. But one case in point, I applied for a position overseas in Tokyo and I thought I had support at the very highest levels at the bank because of my track record and such. But even if you let these executives know, there are politics involved, and so I was not able to achieve that goal of being posted overseas. But at least those much higher than me knew what my aspirations were. And, I kept those relationships going. And in the end, it really helped out with the rest of my career. So I think, again, you start that relationship, you nurture it, develop it, and it's always a two-way street. However, you can help that other person achieve their goals, however that may be. It's going to look both. It's going to have both of you benefit over time.
yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely an important thing to take away from all of mentorship month is that it definitely is a two-way street. Like, I think your mentor can get just as much out of you as a mentee, and that's you can definitely both learn and grow from each other.
And
Rich,
also, if I could add, if
yeah.
there will be setbacks, and that's a time where you will reach out to your mentor or mentors and just get different. Pardon me, I'm just coming down with this allergies, but different perspectives, and you have all these choices to kind of learn from, and then you make that decision with all this information you received.
Yeah, for sure. Richard, it seems like you're back on. If you want to take the same question, story of a mentor that has been successful in your career and why you think that this was successful.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having internet issues tonight.
No worries.
I was talking kind of through how I found my mentors throughout my career. Like I say, most of them are kind of outside of the workplace and just around common interests. Um, and a lot of my mentors come from, vastly different backgrounds than I. So I would say that the most successful part of the mentorship that I've been able to have is just kind of their guidance. And like Mike was saying, it is a two-way street. There is benefit for the mentor as well as benefits for the mentee.
Yeah, for sure. Going off of that, my next question actually leads in perfectly for this. So, since you guys are now probably also on the other side, serving as a mentor to others, when students or even early career professionals are reaching out to you to try to spark this connection, what stands out to you in a positive way? And we can start with Jacob again on this one.
Yeah, I think like very honestly, like I'm 29 years old. I have like 6 years of work experience. I still very much feel like I'm early in my career. So sometimes like folks will reach out and they'll be like, "Sir," or like "Mr. Hine." I'm like, "Hey, I really appreciate that. It's very nice. Makes me feel a little old." But I think just like if it feels like a real humans reaching out to me, I'm probably more likely to kind of get into it. I think in this world of like I fall into it too. We all have access to every large language model to kind of give us a little note to send to somebody if we're a little nervous, give us this really professional response. I get those all the time. And I'm less inclined to kind of like, and this is just me personally, like I found like super professional folks, and there's some folks who love to be like addressed in a certain way. I love it if it's just like short, sweet, to the point, feels like you just wrote it up on a whim and we're like, hey, Jacob, this is something I'm looking at. Can you help? Like, do you have 5 minutes? Or, I'm looking at this. Can you connect me with this person? Because the reality is like I said earlier, like some folks want to connect and they just want to kind of watch your career and they want to see what's up and they want to kind of like be around you, which is fair. I do that to people all the time. I'm like, hey, I think you're working on something cool. Would love to watch. But then there's that second part where it's like you're trying to get me on the phone. You're trying to like get me to do something just for everybody on this call, like Holly cold reached out to me couple weeks ago asking about this panel, and it felt very like personal. Like, hey, I'm an undergraduate at USC. This is what I'm looking to do. You in or you out? Like, I'm in. Let's go. So I really love the way that you approached it, Holly, and I think there's like a great human aspect to that too.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely hard to balance. I mean, I've gone through college part with AI and part without it, and learning to, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the emails that I sent out to you guys, I definitely did run through ChatGPT to just make it nice and clean. But I think it definitely is a tool, but also you do have to be mindful that you don't just want a robot speaking for you, and that at the end of the day, we are people behind the screen, so we need to make sure that that still comes through.
But I think like you guys are positioned in like such a fantastic point too, where like you can like see something that is like maybe this is AI or this is like not human enough. I need to kind of change it. 'Cause there's folks I work with, and I'm guilty of this myself, where like I'll put something through ChatGPT, like you said, Ollie, and it's just like you pump it out and it is what it is. But I think you guys are at this like great point of like use that touch, use that feel, use that human aspect, and like have a little confidence with it, and you'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. I'll pass the same question to you, Richard. What do you find a positive aspect when people are reaching out to you, either just to connect or form a mentorship or things like that?
Yeah, so I really enjoy giving back. One of the things I do is I coach high school football at one of the local schools around my area, and it's kind of my way of giving back. I played football in undergrad, and I enjoy being around other people who are trying to get to college playing football. So I would say like when people reach out to me, I somewhat of a thoughtful note about, hey, this is, what I'm doing, what I'm looking at. I I'd like to talk about this, or I'm interested in this. It seems like you have subject matter knowledge in this. So just kind of leaning into any information that they might need for me up front. And then I would also say like when I'm meeting with people, it speaks volumes when they have really thoughtful questions or they're planned out. There's been like a few times where you go to a coffee chat with someone and they're just like, okay, well, tell me about you. And like, hopefully you were able to get what you wanted to meet with me about through my LinkedIn or other sources. And there should be a time for someone to kind of dig deep and ask their personal questions and not really have your story again.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I think this is something that I've learned through networking. I think at first I was a little hesitant to look at people's LinkedIns before. I thought that people would maybe think that I was like a stalker or like weird for knowing everything about them. But I think that you're definitely right that it kind of like bypasses it. And obviously, you're going to introduce yourselves to each other, but you can definitely then find that next step, start to build that connection. So I think that's a great point. And then Mike, if you want to take the same question, what do you think stands out to you when people
Sure,
are reaching out?
sure. Well, I think because at my age now, I am a mentor, and I work closely with many college students, and in fact, with USC students in different aspects, as well as high school students in my community work. So I'm the one who always initiates conversations with them because they're hesitant to talk to someone who they don't know or someone older, but it's really a conversation just to get to know that person, that young person, instead of a very formal, structured type of almost an interview. I don't. feel that that's helpful, at least with a young person, but just to get to know them. And then throughout that conversation, I do have these probing questions, or they might volunteer to offer, this is what I'd like to do. I'm thinking about this or that. And then invariably, because I know I have a large network, that I'll tell them, I can introduce you to this person. And that's happened a number of times, and maybe they have landed the position over there, but at least they've expanded their network. And I'm always emphasizing to these students that you need to maintain that network relationship, continue to again nurture it, and don't be shy. Over time, as you become more comfortable, you'll be more confident in how you approach people, and uh, don't hesitate to ask. That person can say yes or no, but the more you practice, you become more adept at it.
For sure, like anything, I think the more you practice it, the better it is, the more comfortable it becomes, and the more confident you can do it. Um, Now I'm going to ask each of you a little bit more of a specific question about your experience, and then I'll definitely leave time for anybody else so you guys can start thinking about any other questions you have or even start to type those in the chat. But I'll start with you, Mike. How do you think networking, specifically in finance, has evolved over time, and what do you think still matters most today?
Wow. That's a loaded question, but again, I have been retired for 4 years. I retired early, and I was very fortunate to be able to do it because I planned out my career long ago to retire younger. But in terms of networking, when I was with various banks, I was a junior officer and then I became a senior officer. So I was a mentee as well as a mentor. But in each instance, it was always out there, whomever I was speaking with, that this is what I want to do with my job track in this in this bank. And so by letting people know uh, this is the my vision or aspirations, I think uh, that that knowledge that was put out there by me, it did uh, create that opportunities for me to try different tasks and jobs. And so my career didn't have a linear path. I was able to experience different aspects of banking. I was a loan officer, I was a trust officer, I was also a currency trader, so many different parts of banking. And it's only because I let people in higher levels know this is what interests me. So how can I achieve that? What is the path I need to take to get over to that? So, um, but times are very different now. I think because of the pandemic, many people were working remotely, and that's when I retired. It was during the pandemic because I felt that I was no longer effective as a banker because I could not meet with my clients, and so today's world is very different, and I'm hoping that there's more and more human touch. Of course, you're having AI out there, but the more you can demonstrate that you have these aspirations, and you are genuinely interested in this thing with emotions and such, that goes a long way. So, when I started my career, they didn't have informational interviews. You just went in for an interview right away. And so they knew exactly what kind of person you were and potentially what kind of colleague you could become.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, Richard, I'm going to ask you a bit more specific questions. So, since you work at a large, fast-moving organization, Warner Bros., I want to ask you what you think is the best way for students to stand out when they're reaching out to professionals at these larger organizations, because I think something that students feel like is sometimes it's like a shot in the dark, and at bigger companies, it's not really going to get you anywhere. So, what do you think is a good way for students to stand out?
Yeah, I would say being precise in what you're asking. So, one of the big things that's happening right now is the merger with Netflix. And if you're reaching out to someone, you know, understanding how the business has been impacted and gauging questions around that to show, genuine interest in what you want to talk to someone about. I would say that really goes a long way, as well as, reaching out and there's a lot of people on the production side who need services or something. So if you're able to offer some benefit to them, I think that's also another way that people will be receptive to anybody reaching out.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And now Jacob, what traits do you think successfully turn conversations into, sorry, long-term opportunities? I think a lot of times students do successfully go through the motions of doing that coffee chat, but then they find it hard to take that um, next step and build that into a connection that is long-lasting.
Yeah, I kind of view like my cadence I have with folks I mentor as like beating a drum. I'm a big metaphor fan, but I think like say that like Holly, you come to me and say, Jacob, I'm really interested in working at this company that you're at, or I'm working towards whatever. Maybe there needs to be like this introductory call or a coffee chat, like you said. And then there's like other steps in between that. You don't really know what that is in an undergraduate student, but like maybe I know as the alumni or I know as the mentor, like feel empowered to like beat that drum and say like, hey, like we haven't talked in 2 days. Like where are we at? Like what can I do? Or like how can I take things off your plate? Because I think for me, like I have folks I mentor who they want something from me at the end of the day, right? They want an introduction to somebody, they want a conversation, whatever. And if we fall like short of that for whatever reason, like reach back out to me. Hey, we didn't like I needed this thing from you. It didn't happen. Like how do I get there? And if it's something I can't do, I will tell you. If it's another mentor who they can't do, like they will tell you. But I do feel like if you're a young person, you're at USC, you have all these intangibles that like got you here in the first place. You probably are deserving of that conversation in most instances. So just keep like beating that drum and don't like get discouraged if you don't hear conversations back. Um, when I was in your guys' shoes, I shot for the moon at like craziest companies and got denied from every single one. And like, I just don't think you can let that like deter your confidence. And like, so if you like keep beating that drum and you keep reaching out to folks and you keep saying, hey, I'm looking for this, can you help me get it? Like, I think that's very honest. And like, it's just like that persistence is going to pay off in some fashion. And I think Mike said something earlier that I really resonate with of like, you almost need these mentors or like this, network around you in your life. And you build that when you don't need it, right? You build that now as like an undergraduate or as a young professional when you maybe have a job from USC or there's a reason you get a job out of school, but then you don't need it. Like 4 or 5 years down the line, when you're still a young professional, but like, something happens with your career, you have to move something else, like then you may need to lean on it a little more. And I think those young professionals who like beat that drum every day. It's in the back of their mind, hey, okay, it's, Wednesday every week. I'm going to connect with somebody on LinkedIn or I'm going to shoot a message out, whatever it is. I think like that beating of the drum is really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I think that's definitely a good point. We talked about this in an earlier session we had this month, but that you should just take like any response as a win. Like when you're
Yeah.
sending these cold emails, a lot of times people aren't going to respond. You're probably emailing people who have like literally 1,000 emails in their inbox every day. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
not necessarily a guarantee that they're even going to give you a response. So yeah, I think just be persistent with it. And again, with practice, it'll definitely get easier over time. Now I want to switch gears and we can open it up. I want you guys to be able to ask any questions you have. So feel free to unmute. You guys can come off camera and give a quick introduction of yourself. Or if you don't feel comfortable with that, feel free to just type your question in the chat. This can be a general question to any of our panelists or a specific question to any of them. But just want to give you guys the chance to ask your questions as well.
they're all muted. Maybe that's what it is.
And I do
But,
I do have some more questions we can keep going through if
okay. But
no
what I'd
one
like to
feels
share
comfortable,
too,
but
if you don't mind, I'd like to share is that, you know, so Jacob and Richard and Chrissy, we're all graduates now, but we're still involved. Isn't that amazing? Because it's important, we feel it's so important to to just give back and pay it forward. And as I mentioned, I've been doing this for so long, and it's very meaningful to me because I feel I still have knowledge and expertise. I think I have more expertise now than, of course, all of you out there, but it's useful information. And what I tell my mentees is that I can talk and talk, and hopefully there's one bit of something that I said that will spark a conversation with another person, another younger person, years into the future. And you'll remember that from the conversation that I had with you 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But the Trojan Network is very strong. It's a large family. And I still am tapped into it through the days of service. It's for alumni in March, and I volunteer for that every year. And I continue to network with these alums. And you know what are you doing in your career now? Or oh, you've retired now, or your children, what are you doing? How are you involved with USC? There's so many clubs out there for alums, and students can participate as well. So there's so many resources available to you compared to when I was going to school. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, and just to build off that, like Mike, I do think what you were saying is like it's this feeling of giving back, and like for me, I feel that same way. It's like it is this like family dynamic almost, where like people reached down the ladder and like grabbed me and like pulled me up, and they're like, "Come on, I'm gonna help you get this job, and I'm gonna find a way to help you." And like
Hmm.
I feel that like everybody in this like Trojan family like actually feels the same, and like granted, I did not get to experience like the undergraduate experience at USC, but like as a graduate student. I still feel the same way. So it's great.
Yeah, I agree, Jacob. I think some of my best friends are, in my cohort from my MBA program. We still talk every day, and we all kind of look out for each other when any life event happens or anything like that. So it's a really strong network. It's great.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, Richard. My closest friends are Trojans, whom I met back, 40 years ago. We're still very close. Thank you. Come on, there's got to be some question up there.
we have one question in the chat. This is for Richard. It says, "What do you mean by things we could assist with? Do you have any examples of things that they would need?" This might be specifically to one of your responses.
I think it was in response to how do you reach out and make a genuine connection at a large company? By offerings, I mean, like if you're in the film school looking and connecting with someone in production and saying like, oh, I have an idea, and you never know who's going to be receptive. So I would just say, as long as you keep trying and getting in contact and taking those educated swings at who to connect with, I think that's what pays off in the long run.
Okay, we have another question from Chelsea in the chat. She said, "Thank you so much for sharing. She is a freshman and she's currently exploring her career path. And she wants to know how each of you found your interests and ended up doing the job that you did." Richard, we can start with you.
Yeah, I would say my interests are still evolving. I think that one of the things is I'm always looking to learn more, take on more, find new opportunities, and I think that has kept me one growing in my career and open to opportunities as they come. So I would say that there's
never going to be a right time, that you might think, oh, this is exactly what I want to do. Because that can change in life circumstances, your family, all that. So I would just say that you have to keep an open mind. And if it's what you like to do right now, then run with it until you don't like to do it anymore.
For sure. Mike, I'll pass the same question over to you.
Okay. I think everything in life you do put yourself out there and you do take risks. Uh, when I applied to USC, I thought I was going to go into the dental school. That was my aspirations to become an orthodontist, but it didn't work out that first semester. Those classes were very difficult. It weeded me right out. So I went straight into the business school. But from that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do in business. So as I mentioned earlier, I had a part-time job at a bank just because I wanted a job. And from there, it kind of evolved into, well, does this mean a career? When I graduated, it was at the height of a recession. And so the job opportunities weren't that great. So I decided with some friends to go to Japan to see some friends over there. And when I was there, we went to this university, pretty prestigious university because USC has a sister program over there. And I decided this is what I want to do in my career. I want to begin my career in Tokyo. And through various, resources, information researching, I did make it happen. So if you have a goal, you should stick to it. But if you veer off that path, it's okay too, because as it was mentioned earlier, you have distractions in life. But you reassess that goal. And if you feel that's the same, you want to continue to shoot for it, you get back on a path, maybe a different way, and hopefully you can achieve it. But you're young enough to make changes because keep in mind you're going to be doing your career for 30 plus years. I was a banker for 41 years. That's a long time. And I enjoyed it. I truly did. But at the same time, life isn't only about work. You have that life balance. So I did have on the other side this parallel kind of pathway, all my community work, organizations, and I'm heavily involved in that now. So it's almost like another career, but I don't get paid for it. But it's meaningful in many other ways.
Yeah, for sure. And then Jacob, you can take the same question also.
Yeah, Chelsea, I would like say that like you're in the best position possible. Like I'm this like eternal optimist of like there are 100 fantastic career paths like out of USC, regardless of USC. Like if you're a freshman, I kind of think about it as like you're 18 or 19 years old and like you have like the whole world in front of you. You probably haven't picked a major yet. You haven't picked this industry yet. And like Mike was talking about goals. And I think those will become like a little bit more solid and like tangible as you get into your upperclassmen years when you're a junior and senior and you really kind of find, relationship with some sort of coursework or your major, whatever it is. But like man, if you're a freshman, like dream big right now because nothing is stopping you. Like through the Trojan network and like true through classes and professors and different things, like you can dream up I use the word crazy, but it's not crazy. Just like the most like amazing career, amazing job, like, a company imagine that's so like aspirational, like you could go get it. And I think that's like I love talking to folks who like don't know what they want because I'm like, this is great. You could really take this however you want because um, even if you narrow it down to something like a city, right? Or like, hey, I'd love to move to New York or I want to go to Tokyo or I want to go to London. You could really do any of those things. And then you kind of narrow it down as you get older as to like kind of how to get to that point. Um, but I think how I found my interest is at that same point. I came into my freshman year of college and I had no idea what my major was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be a business student. I didn't know if I was going to be a film student. Who knows, right? And I think like as you know better, you'll do better, which is like a Maya Angelou quote, which I love. But I think for you, like you're in a fantastic position, and I would just take it with like optimism and like try to learn a little bit more about what you want every day. And like there'll be folks here, folks in this room who can like help kind of guide you or shape goals as you need them. But like I'm super optimistic for you, and I think you're in a great spot.
Okay, if nobody else has any other questions, I'll ask another one. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think one thing with networking that maybe stresses students out or is overwhelming is that it feels super transactional. So how do you guys try to build relationships in a way that feels more genuine and not just like you're trying to get something from them? Mike, we can start with you on this one.
I Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, um, I enjoy speaking. It goes back to relationship building and driven. So I think I'm a pretty easy person to speak with, but I tend to be the one who starts or initiates conversation. So I get to know that person and I try to get have them become comfortable, at least with just our one-on-one. So if I'm working with a student and I know that they're there for a purpose of trying to get some information from me to help them out with a career or introductions, that's how I begin. So it doesn't feel transactional and they're not stressed out. I would like them to feel just at ease and have that just a casual conversation. And then as they become more comfortable with me, then I can ease into, well, by the way, how are you? What is your strategy in trying to achieve this? Who have you met? How can I help you? All those kind of probing questions. And I think at the end, the takeaway for that student is it's not, it doesn't have to be stressful. I'm very nervous, but once you feel that these type of one-on-ones are the beginning of a relationship, and you can take the relationship as long as you want. You can end it if you feel you're not going to have any benefit, but the more you stay true to yourself, that I think this person, even though right now there may not be something that I can use, but I think just because of that person's personality, uh, in the future, this person can help me out. So I think that's with me how I maintain these very long-term relationships because again, I stay in touch with them, such as that mentee I had 11 years ago. He hasn't heard from me in a few years, but I thought, yeah, I came across his name. I want to know what he's doing in his life now. So that's just the way I work.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's never I think a lot of times students think it's like too late or too early to reach out or a weird amount of time or things like that. But I think no one will dislike someone reaching out and wanting to get to know more about you. I think people
Right.
obviously like to talk about what they do. It's what they chose to do. They most likely love doing it, love talking about it. So I think it's
Hmm.
just got to get over that initial first step and then it'll keep
Yeah.
going easier from there.
Yeah.
And then we have another question in the chat from Chelsea. She said, "What are some advices you want to give freshmen to start their career exploration, or something you would change if you would go back to your freshman year?" If any of you want to jump in on this one.
Yeah, I think about like I kind of use this framework with some of the undergraduates that I talk to about like, there'll be this point in your life, maybe you haven't done it yet, which is totally fair, but like you're shopping for an apartment. And I lived on the west side of Los Angeles for 3 years. And like when you're living on the west side, you don't get air conditioning and parking and like the space you want. You have to make trade-offs, right? And so I think
Mhm.
if you're a freshman or you're an underclassman, even if you're a junior senior, you can still do this, right? But like when you're looking for an apartment, you're looking at the size. Do you want air conditioning? Do you want a parking spot? Do you want whatever? And it's kind of these like filters that you can create on like think about like a Zillow app or like some app where you're going to like search for a house to buy. I almost think of career searching in the same way. Like LinkedIn doesn't really offer this, but like you could do it for yourself, right? Like what filters do you want to apply? Do I want to live in Los Angeles after I graduate? Do I want to go international? Do I want to go to New York? Do I want to do something else, right? That narrows down the options. I want to work in something that I think there's I don't really know how to put this like without being blunt about it, but I think there's some careers that are more like I am passionate about this and I really love this and it's maybe it's something that you've done your whole life and you want to continue doing that. Or there's folks who like, hey, I really want to chase like a high paying like high paced job. Awesome. Like I think both things, you just have to narrow it down. And I think as you're like starting off, like create those filters and just like start writing them down and say like, hey, here's something that matters to me and like I'm not willing to compromise on this. Maybe it's the city, maybe it's, the industry, whatever it is. And I certainly wish I like thought about that more when I was an undergraduate. I went to the University of Minnesota and like I was like, I'm just gonna work at one of the companies that like the business school pumps kids out to and there's these great internships and I have a decent GPA, I have a chance. And like you don't think about that maybe as a freshman or sophomore because you maybe have other priorities. Um, but I think for me, and Chelsea, if I were to give you advice, again, talking to Chelsea, but I think like, however you can apply those filters early and often in your career is going to be great.
Richard or Mike, anything to add on to that? If not, I have one final question we can wrap up with. Okay, so for all of our students on here, what is one actionable step that you would give them to do this month in order to start building stronger professional relationships? Richard, we can start with you.
Well, I'll say first off, congratulate yourself for attending tonight. I think that's kind of a step in creating network and look around and who's in the room. They're obviously interested in learning to network. These people can be kind of the start of your network. I would also say one of the things that I do at Warner Brothers is I'm on our young professionals group, and I think being involved, especially with people your same age, everybody's learning the company. So get involved and don't be afraid to raise your hand for something that you normally wouldn't do because you're going to meet a lot of people and those are great memories to have. And those are really what create those bonds with mentors and other networking people, individuals.
Yeah, for sure. I think you make a great point. I always like to mention that, but just showing up here today is a great first step. I know it's always hard to know what to do or where to start, but you guys are all doing great just by showing up here. You're on the right track. So just keep doing more things like this. And again, with time, it'll get easier, it'll become more natural, and you guys will be pros at this by the end. But Mike, if you want to give one piece of
Yeah,
advice.
yeah, yeah. Richard, I agree with you totally that all of these in the room, they took a big step, forward in this journey you're on now. And the takeaway from this is after you've heard everything we've offered here tonight is I know you're taking notes, right? That you follow up on those as action items and you have tangible results with at least one of them, whatever it may be. Even reach out to me, reach out to Jacob, reach out to Richard on LinkedIn or whatever the platform is and ask for a meeting or can you guide me with this or that? Now it becomes more personal because you've met us and you've heard us, so you've established a relationship with us. So I hope that's what will happen. But you have plenty of information out there now from this 1 hour session, and you should just you run with it. And I know you're going to have wins, and you're not going to have some wins sometimes, but that's what life is all about. It's not always going to be 100% your way. So, but you will find ways to achieve your goal. Workarounds may get you from point A to D to, C and then finally to B, but it works out in the end. And maybe your goals have shifted over time because of that journey you took. That, well, I don't know if I want to do this any longer or pursue it. And that's fine.
For
There
sure.
you go.
Nanpu, I see that you have your hand raised if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for the raise hand function for a long time. I haven't been using Zoom for a long time.
No worries.
So, I had like a really short last question is that I am pretty much an introvert and I don't really reach out to people in my daily lives when it comes to networking. And also, because English is not my native language, so when I really try to reach out in real life to people, especially professionals like you, and when I said something wrong or when I utter, I just wanted to hide myself like an ostrich. So, are there any advice would you give for an introvert like me when doing networking?
Yeah, I can take this. I think as an introvert networking, like you have to give yourself that like small win of like, whatever it is. You may not have like the bombastic like LinkedIn posts and you're not going crazy like messaging people and all that stuff, but like any incremental effort you're doing is a win. Like showing up here, raising your hand, like that is like fantastic. Like I'll tell you right now, if I was a freshman in college, I was not doing that. So like Nampu, I just want to say like you're on the absolute right track. But I think if you are an introvert and it's not this like really colorful conversation. It's just, hey, maybe I need something or you want to network. Like lean on like USC, lean on like commonalities you have with folks. And like I know you said you're not a native English speaker. Like Richard, I don't know how it was for you in your MBA program. We had a ton of non-native English speakers in my MBA program. And there are so many people that like you can reach out to and I'll just say like people are way more open to like you reaching out than you perceive. But I think just giving yourself that credit of like any effort is a great like step in the right direction. And then there are folks, maybe who speak the same language as you or like have some sort of like similar background that are USC graduates or at companies. Um, and like if you find like a comfortable person or like a mentor who like can go out and advocate for you, I think that would be really helpful as well.
Yeah, and I'd also say, look into virtual networking. Sometimes we don't even have to leave our Zoom meeting to network anymore. I think that's been both you know, a benefit and kind of a drawback of COVID. Um, there's opportunities to network virtually.
Right. And I think, Nampu, that in terms of what you want to do with your career, would it be more of you work alone, such as maybe an analyst, or I don't know what your major is, or is it part of a team? So I think that's going to be a big part in how you pursue what you want to do with your career because of your personal background and such. And by the way, your English is fine, at least from what I've heard, because living abroad, I've heard a range of English levels, proficiency. On the other hand, my Japanese is not proficient, but everyone makes mistakes speaking a foreign language, and I do too. But it doesn't hold me back.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate your advices.
Hmm.
Well, I think that brings us right about to time. But first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining and those of you who participated and asked questions. I appreciate it. And then thank you, Mike, Richard, and Jacob. I really appreciate your time. This was definitely very valuable. I think it's one thing for students to hear me talk, but another thing for them to hear alumni who are actually out in the workforce, actually working and hearing your advice is just so helpful. So I really appreciate you all taking the time. And we definitely all learned a lot from you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it,
Welcome.
everybody.
Thanks for
You're
having
welcome.
us.
Same here. Thank you. And fight on, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
right on.
Yes, fight on.
All right, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice evening. Okay. Bye-bye.